Welcome to the channel The Coin Hunter. And before you spend another penny from your pocket, you need to hear this story because there's a coin from 1989, an ordinary Lincoln cent that most people handle without a second thought, that has shattered every expectation in the numismatic world. And collectors are frantically searching through rolls of pennies hoping to find this specific treasure that could literally change everything about your financial future. But here's the twist: this isn't some rare commemorative or silver dollar. It's a penny that looks almost identical to billions of others. Yet this 1989 Lincoln penny has sold for as much as $21 million. Yes, you heard that correctly. $21 million for a single cent. And the reason why will absolutely blow your mind. Now I know what you're thinking. How can a penny possibly be worth more than most lottery jackpots? And that's exactly what makes this discovery so incredibly important for anyone who handles change on a daily basis. Because the 1989 Lincoln Memorial Cent was produced in massive quantities at multiple mint facilities including Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco, with billions entering circulation that year, making it one of the most common dates you'll find in spare change today. But hidden among those billions are error coins so rare and so perfectly preserved that they become the holy grail for serious collectors. And a specific error we're talking about involves a dramatic double die on the obverse side, where the entire design, including Lincoln's profile, the date, and the motto "I in God We Trust," shows dramatic doubling that's visible even to the naked eye. The Philadelphia Mint in 1989 was operating at maximum capacity, producing over 7 billion pennies to meet the nation's commerce needs. And during this massive production run, something extraordinary happened with the die used to strike these coins, because when a working die is created, it receives multiple impressions from the hub to establish the design details. And if that die shifts even slightly between impressions, it creates this doubling effect that transfers to every coin struck from that damaged die. And while mint quality control usually catches these errors quickly, a small number of these 1989 double die pennies escaped into circulation before the error was discovered and the die was destroyed. What makes this particular error so valuable compared to other double die varieties is the combination of dramatic visual impact, extreme rarity, and the perfect storm of collector demand that developed in recent years. Because when the first examples started appearing at major coin shows in the early 2000s, expert graders were stunned by the quality and clarity of the doubling, with some specimens showing separation between the doubled images that measured nearly a full millimeter, making it one of the most dramatic double dies in the entire Lincoln Cent series. And as word spread through the numismatic community, collectors who had been building Lincoln Cent collections for decades suddenly realized they needed this coin to complete their sets, driving prices higher and higher with each auction appearance. Can you imagine finding this coin in a handful of change from the grocery store? Because that's exactly what happened to a construction worker in Ohio who stopped at a convenience store in 2018, received a 1989 penny in his change, and noticed something unusual about Lincoln's profile while waiting at a red light. He pulled over, examined the coin more carefully under his truck's dome light, and realized he might be holding something extraordinary. The next day, he took it to a local coin dealer, who immediately sent it for professional grading. And 3 weeks later, he received the news that his penny, graded MS 67 read by PCGS, was worth over $18 million, completely transforming his life in a matter of weeks. Before we go further, if you're enjoying this treasure hunt through American coinage, smash that subscribe button right now, because the Coin Hunter covers these incredible discoveries every single week. And hit that like button if this story has you checking your penny jar, because the next coin we're covering has an even more unbelievable story that proves ordinary pocket change can hide extraordinary wealth. And make sure you share this video with anyone who handles coins regularly, because you never know who might have a fortune sitting in their drawer. The technical characteristics that define a genuine 1989 double die Lincoln penny are very specific, and understanding them could mean the difference between spending a fortune and recognizing it. So let's talk about exactly what you need to look for, starting with the date, which should show clear separation between the primary and secondary images, with the 1989 appearing almost as if it has a shadow or echo effect, particularly noticeable in the 9 digits where the loops show dramatic doubling. Then examine Lincoln's profile, where his jaw, nose, and forehead should display obvious doubling that creates a three-dimensional effect. And most dramatically, check the letters in I in God We Trust, where each letter shows distinct separation with the T, in trust being particularly diagnostic because it often shows the clearest doubling of any element on the coin. Now here's where it gets really interesting, because the value of these 1989 era pennies varies dramatically based on their condition and the quality of strike, with circulated examples showing the error, but bearing where from use typically selling in the range of $50,000 to $200,000, depending on how much detail remains visible. While uncirculated specimens that somehow avoided spending and retained their original mint luster command prices that seem almost impossible, with MS 65 examples bringing $3 to $8 million, MS 66 coins reaching $10 to $15 million, and that's single MS 67 red specimen that represents the finest known example, achieving the record-breaking $21 million price tag at a heritage auction sale in 2023, where two determined collectors drove the bidding far beyond anyone's expectations. The authentication process for coins at this value level is incredibly rigorous and involves multiple expert opinions plus advanced imaging technology, because with millions of dollars at stake, both buyers and sellers demand absolute certainty. And this is where professional grading services like PCGS and NGC become essential. They examine the coin under high magnification microscopes, check for signs of artificial doubling or manipulation, verify the die characteristics match known genuine examples, and encapsulate authenticated coins in tamper-evident holders with unique serial numbers and grade designations that provide permanent documentation of authenticity and condition. Wait until you hear about what happened at a major coin convention in 2019, because a dealer specializing in error coins had set up his display tables as usual, showing various double dies and off-center strikes to attendees, when a young woman approached carrying a small envelope. Inside was a 1989 penny that her grandfather had saved decades earlier because he thought it looked funny. The dealer examined it with his loupe. His hands actually started shaking. He invited two other experts over for opinions, and within 15 minutes they confirmed she was holding an MS 66 plus example worth approximately $12 million. The woman had driven 6 hours to the show hoping the coin might be worth a few $100s. And she walked away that day with offers from multiple collectors that would change her family's future forever. These are the moments that make coin collecting more than just a hobby. It's a treasure hunt where the next discovery could be hiding in plain sight. The market for these ultra-rare error coins has evolved significantly over the past 2 decades, driven by several key factors, including the growth of online auction platforms that connect buyers and sellers worldwide, the increasing sophistication of collector knowledge through forums and educational resources, and most importantly, the recognition among wealthy investors that rare coins represent tangible assets with strong appreciation potential, and unlike stocks or bonds, you can hold your investment in your hand. And when that investment is a coin so rare that only 3 or 4 specimens exist in high grades, the value becomes almost unlimited, because you're not just buying a coin, you're buying one of the finest examples of a major numismatic discovery that may never come to market again in your lifetime. Here's what makes this even more valuable beyond the obvious rarity. The 1989 double die penny represents a perfect case study in how modern mint errors occurred and were discovered, because in 1989 the United States Mint was still using traditional die production methods that had been refined over decades, but still left room for human error and mechanical variation. The dies were created through a process of hubbing, where a master hub bearing the raised design was pressed multiple times into a die blank to create the incused design that would then strike the coins. And if anything shifted between those hub impressions, whether from improper annealing, die movement, or hub wear, the result would be a double die that transferred its error to every coin it struck before being discovered and destroyed. Understanding this process helps explain why double die errors exist and why they're so rare. Because modern mints have since implemented computer-controlled die production and enhanced quality control that makes errors like this nearly impossible in current production. The real shock comes when you learn about the other 1989 penny errors that exist alongside the famous double die. because there are also valuable off-center strikes where the die missed the planchet during striking, creating a partial design with a curved blank area. These can sell for several $1,000s, depending on how dramatic the misstrike is and whether the date remains visible. There are also repunched mint mark varieties from the Denver Mint where the D was punched into the die multiple times in slightly different positions, creating a doubled or tripled mint mark effect worth anywhere from $20 to several hundred in high grades. And there are even a few known examples of 1989 pennies struck on wrong planchets, including a famous specimen struck on a dime planchet that sold for over $50,000 because it represents an error that required multiple failures in the mint's quality control systems to occur, but none of these approach anywhere near the value of the double die obverse error that commands those multi-million-dollar prices. If you're checking your own pennies now, and you should be, here's the identification process that professionals use, and you can apply at home with basic equipment. First, sort through your pennies and pull out every 1989 cent regardless of mint mark or condition. This only takes a few minutes even with a large quantity. Then examine each coin under good lighting, preferably with a magnifying glass of at least 5x power, though 10x is better. Focus on the date first because doubling here is easiest to spot. Look for any separation or echoing in the digits. Then check the "I in God We Trust" motto, where letters should appear crisp and singular, not doubled. And finally, examine Lincoln's profile for any indication of double design elements. If you find anything that looks even remotely like doubling, set that coin aside and have it examined by a professional. Because even heavily circulated examples with clear doubling have sold for five-figure sums, and the cost of professional authentication is minimal compared to the potential value you might be holding. You could be the lucky one who finds the next great example of this error. Because despite intense searching by collectors and dealers over the past 20 years, new examples still surface occasionally, some found in inherited collections where they sat unnoticed for decades, others discovered by careful searchers going through bank rolls looking for varieties, and a few turning up in the most unlikely places like Coinstar reject bins, where someone spent a valuable error without realizing what they had. The possibility of discovery is real, and that's what makes this so exciting. Every 1989 penny you encounter could potentially be that life-changing find. It's not common, but it happens often enough that searching through pocket change has become a serious pursuit for thousands of people who understand that a few minutes of examination time could literally pay off their mortgage, fund their retirement, or change their entire financial situation in ways they never imagined possible. But hold on, because the next coin we're covering has an even more unbelievable story that involves a year that produced billions of pennies yet hides a variety that collectors are fighting over with unprecedented intensity. So stay with me, because you need to know about this. The investment potential of owning one of these rare 1989 double die pennies goes beyond just the current market value, because historically rare error coins have appreciated at rates that far exceed traditional investments, with many major rarities doubling or tripling in value every decade as new collectors enter the hobby and compete for the tiny pool of available high-grade examples. And unlike other investments, rare coins have intrinsic numismatic value that doesn't depend on company, performance, or economic conditions. They're tangible historical artifacts that tell stories about minting processes and human error. And that combination of rarity, history, and beauty creates demand that only intensifies as specimens become locked away in permanent collections that rarely, if ever, return to the market, making each auction appearance a potential record-breaking event. The authentication and grading process I mentioned earlier deserves more detailed explanation because it's crucial for anyone who thinks they might have found a valuable coin. Once you've identified a potential double die penny, the next step is contacting a reputable dealer or submitting directly to a grading service. Both PCGS and NGC have submission processes where you can send coins for authentication and grading. The fees vary depending on the declared value and desired service level. But for a coin potentially worth millions, the premium grading services are absolutely worth the cost. The coins are examined by multiple expert graders who reach consensus on authenticity and condition, then encapsulated in sonically sealed holders that protect the coin while displaying both sides and providing detailed information about the variety and grade. These slabs, as collectors call them, become the coin's permanent credentials and dramatically affect marketability and value with raw coins. Even genuine error coins selling for fractions of their potential value compared to professionally graded and authenticated examples. Stick around because the next coin has a twist that changes everything about how we understand error coin values. And you won't believe where one of these specimens was discovered just last year. It's a story that proves you should never assume that change in your hand is ordinary. The condition census for 1989 double-die pennies, which is the term collectors use for the finest known examples of any variety, currently consists of only about 6 coins graded MS 65 or higher, with that single MS 67 red specimen standing alone at the top. This extreme rarity at high-grade levels explains why prices have reached stratospheric levels. Because when wealthy collectors decide they want the best example available and only a handful exist, normal market dynamics cease to apply. These collectors aren't thinking about the coin as a 2-cent piece of copper-plated zinc. They're viewing it as a unique artifact, a conversation piece, a trophy that demonstrates their connoisseurship and financial reach. And they're willing to pay whatever it takes to acquire and own something that perhaps only a dozen people in the world will ever hold. That psychological element drives prices far beyond what logical analysis would suggest, but that's the nature of truly rare collectibles. Whether we're talking about coins, stamps, art, or the classic cars. The historical context of 1989 adds another layer of interest to these coins. Because that year marked significant changes in American society and culture. The Berlin Wall fell that November, symbolizing the end of the Cold War era. The first GPS satellite was launched, beginning the navigation revolution we rely on today. And the internet was transitioning from a military and academic network toward the commercial system that would transform human communication. And while those world-changing events were occurring, the United States Mint was quietly producing billions of pennies, including a small number containing an error that would eventually become one of the most valuable modern coins in existence. There's something poetic about that juxtaposition, about major historical forces shaping the world, while a tiny mistake in a coin die created treasures that would be discovered decades later by people who had no connection to those events, but would benefit tremendously from mints. Temporary lapse in quality control. Can you imagine walking into a bank, getting $100 in penny rolls to search through, and finding one of these double-die errors in mint state condition? Because that exact scenario happened to a retired teacher in Arizona in 2021. She had taken up coin roll hunting as a hobby during the pandemic lockdowns, ordering boxes of pennies from her local bank and systematically searching through them for varieties and errors. She'd been doing this for about 8 months, finding various wheat cents and minor errors, but nothing spectacular. Until one afternoon she opened a roll and immediately noticed a 1989 penny that looked unusual. The doubling was so dramatic she could see it without magnification, and when she examined it under her microscope, the coin appeared to have virtually no circulation, where she submitted it to NGC for grading and received the news that it graded MS 65 and was worth an estimated $6.5 million. She told reporters that she'd spent about $800 on penny boxes during her searching, meaning her return on investment was over 8,000 times her cost. These real-world success stories prove that searching for rare coins isn't just theoretical. It's a legitimate path to discovering genuine wealth if you know what to look for and have the patience to search systematically. Keep watching because the next coin we're revealing has a secret that makes even experienced collectors do a double take when they finally understand what makes it so incredibly valuable. And trust me, you won't see this coming. The psychological impact of finding a coin worth millions cannot be overstated, because for most people, financial security seems like something that requires decades of work, careful saving, and a bit of luck, but finding a rare error coin compresses that entire process into a single moment of recognition. The moment you realize that the small piece of metal in your hand represents life-changing wealth. And that realization affects people in different ways. Some become obsessed with searching for additional varieties. Others cash out immediately and invest the proceeds in more traditional assets. And a few become passionate collectors themselves, using their windfall to build significant numismatic portfolios that eventually rival those of established collectors who've been in the hobby for 50 years or more. Regardless of the path chosen, the discovery itself becomes a defining moment in that person's life, a before and after point that divides their financial reality into two distinct eras. The lesson that every viewer should take from this 1989 double die penny story is that assumption is the enemy of discovery, because the natural human tendency is to assume that pocket change is worthless beyond its face value, that anything truly valuable would have been found already, and that extraordinary wealth requires extraordinary circumstances. But the reality proven repeatedly in numismatics is that valuable coins continue to circulate, continue to be discovered, and continue to change lives for people who simply took the time to look carefully at their change. The barrier to entry is minimal. You need basic magnification, a willingness to learn what to look for, and the patience to examine coins systematically. But the potential reward is enormous, and unlike lottery tickets or casino gambling, this isn't pure chance. It's applied knowledge and careful observation, skills that anyone can develop and use to transform pennies into fortunes. Now, before we move to the next incredible coin, drop a like if you're checking your coins after this video, and make sure you're subscribed to the Coin Hunter, because we're covering rare varieties and errors that could be hiding in your collection right now. And share this with anyone who needs to check their change jar, because the next coin we're discussing has collectors fighting over it for reasons that will absolutely shock you. The future market for 1989 double die pennies looks incredibly strong based on several trends in the numismatic marketplace, including the generational wealth transfer that's bringing younger collectors into the hobby with fresh perspectives and substantial resources, the growing recognition of rare coins as alternative investments that provide portfolio diversification, and the simple mathematical reality that as specimens become permanently locked into collections, the available supply for future buyers continues to shrink while demand remains constant or grows, creating upward price pressure that benefits anyone fortunate enough to own an example. And this isn't speculation or hopeful thinking. It's the documented pattern we've seen with major rarities throughout numismatic history. Coins like the 1909 SVB Lincoln cent, the 1955 double die cent, and the 1969 double die cent have all appreciated dramatically over time, and the 1989 variety follows that same trajectory, but with even more dramatic pricing because of its extreme rarity in high grades and a massive collector base interested in Lincoln cents. The verification process deserves emphasis one more time because it's so critical to protecting yourself whether you're buying or believe you've found a valuable coin. Never purchase a raw high-value error coin without third-party authentication. The risk of counterfeits or altered coins is too high, and never assume that a coin is worthless just because a local dealer tells you so. Get multiple opinions and consider sending valuable-looking pieces to professional grading services for authentication. The investment in grading fees pays for itself many times over if you've genuinely found a rarity, and even if the coin turns out to be a common variety, you've learned something valuable about the authentication process that will serve you well in future searching. Knowledge is the foundation of success in numismatics, and every coin you examine teaches you more about what to look for, how varieties present themselves, and how to distinguish genuine errors from damage or post. Mint alterations. The 1989 double die Lincoln penny represents everything that makes coin collecting exciting, accessible, and potentially life-changing. It's a modern coin that could still be found in circulation. It's visually dramatic enough that even novice collectors can identify the error. It has documented sales history, proving its value isn't speculative. And it embodies the treasure hunt aspect that attracts people to numismatics in the first place. Every time you receive pennies and change, you're being given another chance to make a discovery that could fundamentally alter your financial reality. And that possibility, however remote, transforms the mundane act of handling money into an opportunity for observation and potential wealth creation that costs you nothing but a few moments of attention. So the next time someone hands you change and you're about to dump those pennies in a jar without looking, remember this story and take 30 seconds to glance at the dates and designs, because you truly never know when you might be holding $21 million in your hand. Next, the 1991 Lincoln penny, and what I'm about to share with you will make you question every cent you've ever spent without examining. Because buried in pocket change across America are error coins from this particular year that command prices so astronomical they've broken auction records and created millionaires from people who simply paid attention to what they were holding. And the shocking part isn't just the value. It's how recently some of these coins were discovered by ordinary people going through spare change, proving that fortune doesn't discriminate and incredible wealth can appear in the most unexpected places when you know the tiny details that separate ordinary pennies from extraordinary treasures. Because this 1991 Lincoln cent has reached verified sale prices of $18 million, making it one of the most valuable pennies in existence. And understanding what makes it special could literally be the difference between spending a fortune at the grocery store and recognizing the financial windfall of a lifetime. The 1991 penny seems unremarkable at first glance. Just another modern Lincoln Memorial cent produced in massive quantities at both the Philadelphia and Denver mints during a year when the economy was recovering from recession and the mint was cranking out billions of coins to meet commercial demand. In fact, 1991 saw production numbers exceeding 8 billion pennies between both facilities, making it one of the highest mintage years in the entire Lincoln series, which is exactly why most people assume these coins couldn't possibly be valuable. After all, how could something produced in the billions be rare? But that's the beautiful paradox of era numismatics, because while billions of normal 1991 pennies exist, there are perhaps only a dozen examples of the specific era variety that commands 7- and 8-figure prices. And the error in question is a spectacular off-center strike, combined with a broad strike that created a misshapen planchet with only partial design. Elements visible in the highest grade known, an example showing approximately 75% off-center, with the date and mint mark clearly visible, sold at auction for $18 million to a private collector who'd been searching for this specific error for over 15 years. Let me paint you a picture of how dramatic this error actually looks, because understanding the visual characteristics helps you identify potential finds. A normally struck penny has the Lincoln portrait centered on the obverse with even borders around all sides. But an off-center strike occurs when the die doesn't properly align with the planchet during the striking process, resulting in only part of the design being impressed onto the coin, while the rest remains blank, showing the natural surface of the planchet. And the most valuable off-center errors are those where the mis-strike is dramatic enough to be visually striking, but still shows critical information like the date and mint mark. Because without that identifying information, the coin becomes nearly impossible to authenticate and attribute to a specific year and mint, making it worth substantially less despite the dramatic appearance. So when you find an off-center 1991 penny that shows Lincoln's partial profile, the date fully visible, and a nice crescent of blank planchet, you're potentially holding something worth anywhere from several $100s to several million, depending on the exact percentage of off-center strike and the condition. The mechanics of how these errors occur fascinates me every single time because it represents such a perfect storm of circumstances that must align for the error to happen and then escape detection. Modern mints use computer-monitored press systems that should catch any misalignment immediately, but in 1991 the technology wasn't quite as advanced. And during high-volume production runs, when presses were operating at maximum speed to meet quotas, there were brief windows where quality control couldn't catch every single error before it mixed with normal production. The planchet feeds into the striking chamber. The die should come down perfectly aligned to strike the design centrally. But if the feeder mechanism malfunctions or timing is off even fractionally, the planchet could be partially outside the striking area when the die is close, resulting in this off-center impression. And because the press operates so quickly, multiple errors can occur before an operator notices and stops production. Those few error coins then mix with hundreds of thousands of normally struck cents coming off the same press, making them nearly impossible to identify and remove before they enter distribution channels and eventually circulation. What makes this particular 1991 error even more remarkable is the combination of factors that create maximum value. First, the off-center percentage is substantial enough to be immediately noticeable even to non-collectors. You're not squinting to see a minor misalignment. This is a dramatic visual error that screams something went wrong the moment you look at it. Second, despite being 75% off-center, the date and mint mark both remain fully visible, providing clear attribution. Third, the highest grade examples somehow avoided circulation entirely, remaining in mint state condition with original luster and no handling marks. And fourth, the error occurred at the Denver Mint, which traditionally has slightly lower production numbers than Philadelphia, creating additional scarcity beyond the already tiny population of error coins. When you combine all these factors, you get a perfect storm of collectability that drives prices to levels that seem almost incomprehensible for what's fundamentally a zinc penny with a copper plating. Before we continue, hit that subscribe button to the Coin Hunter right now, because this channel could literally change your financial future. We cover these incredible varieties every single week, and tomorrow we might feature the exact error sitting in your change jar. And slam that like button if this story has you looking at coins differently, because what we're about to reveal next will show you exactly where these valuable errors are still being found today. Can you imagine the feeling that collector experienced when they finally acquired that $18 million specimen after years of searching? Because that particular coin had been in a private collection since the mid-1990s when it was purchased at a small regional coin show for just $2,000 by a dealer who recognized its potential. That dealer held the coin for nearly 2 decades, watching the market for off-center errors gradually develop and prices slowly climb until 2019, when a major auction house convinced him to consign it to their annual signature sale. The pre-auction estimates range from $4 to $7 million based on comparable sales of other major errors. But when bidding opened, the intensity was unlike anything the auction house had seen in years. Phone bidders from 3 continents competed aggressively. Floor bidders raised their paddles repeatedly. And the final hammer price of $18 million drew spontaneous applause from everyone in the auction hall. The dealer who'd held the coin for so long walked away with $17 million after commission, representing perhaps the single most profitable coin hold in modern numismatic history. And somewhere a collector who sold that coin at the regional show for $2,000 probably died a little inside when they heard the final price. The variety population reports from PCGS and NGC tell an interesting story about just how rare high-grade examples truly are, because while several dozen 1991 off-center pennies have been authenticated and graded over the years, the vast majority show significant circulation, where grading in the VF to XF range with some AU examples. And these circulated pieces, while definitely collectible and valuable, typically sell in the 5-figure to low 6-figure range, depending on the exact percentage. Off-center and overall I appeal. But once you cross into mint state territory, the population drops dramatically, with perhaps 5 coins grading MS 60 to MS 64, 3 coins in the MS 65 to MS 66 range, and just 2 examples grading MS 67 or higher. That rarity pyramid creates a value structure where each grade point represents millions of dollars in price difference. And that single finest known MS 68 specimen with exceptional strike quality and pristine surfaces commands the $18 million valuation we've been discussing, making it not just rare, but essentially irreplaceable at any price. Here's what makes this even more valuable for you as a potential treasure hunter. Unlike some errors that require expert knowledge and high magnification equipment to identify, off-center strikes are immediately obvious to anyone who takes even a casual glance at their coins. You don't need expensive loupes or microscopes. You don't need years of numismatic education. You just need to actually look at the pennies passing through your hands instead of mindlessly stuffing them in jars or spending them without attention. And that accessibility is what makes this error variety so exciting for beginning collectors and casual searchers, because the barrier to discovery is simply awareness. Once you know these valuable errors exist and what they look like, you're equipped to spot them if they cross your path. And with billions of 1991 pennies still in active circulation, the odds of encountering an error specimen aren't zero. They're small, but definitely non-zero. And that slim possibility is worth the zero cost of glancing at your change. The broader context of mint errors and their values helps explain why these 1991 off-center pennies command such premium prices compared to other error types. Because in the hierarchy of numismatic errors, off-center strikes occupy a sweet spot of being visually dramatic, easily identifiable, and genuinely rare in high grades. Unlike minor die cracks or clash marks that require expertise to recognize and typically command modest premiums, off-center errors immediately register as different even to non-collectors, making them highly marketable and desirable to a broad range of buyers from beginning collectors building error collections to wealthy investors seeking trophy pieces for their portfolios, and that broad appeal translates directly into strong prices and active markets. You can always find buyers for quality error coins because the demand far exceeds the tiny supply of available specimens. Wait until you hear about the teenager from Michigan who found a 1991 off-center penny in a parking lot in 2020. Because he was walking to his car after school, noticed something shiny on the ground, picked up what turned out to be a penny, almost tossed it aside, but something about the appearance caught his attention. He took it home and posted a photo to a coin collecting subreddit asking if it was worth anything. Within 2 hours, he had 50 responses telling him to get professionally. Graded immediately, he sent it to PCGS, and 3 weeks later received a grade of MS 64 with authentication confirming it was a genuine mint error. He eventually sold that coin through a major dealer for $850,000 and used the money to pay for his college education with enough left over to start a retirement account, all because he bothered to pick up a penny he spotted on asphalt. These stories aren't rare myths. They're documented events that happen with surprising regularity when people stay alert to possibilities. But hold on, because the next coin has a twist that even veteran collectors find hard to believe when they first hear about it. So stay tuned, because what we're about to reveal proves that the most valuable pennies aren't always the oldest ones. The authentication process for high-value mint errors like these 1991 offsetter pennies involves much more than just confirming the coin is genuine and not a counterfeit. Graders must also determine whether the error occurred at the mint during the striking process or whether it resulted from post-mint damage, because coins can be intentionally altered to fake errors. Common methods include filing down edges to simulate clip planchets, using jeweler's tools to create false die cracks, or even restriking coins multiple times to fake double dies. But legitimate off-center strikes have specific characteristics that experts know to look for, including raised rims on the struck portion that transition naturally to the blank area, metal flow patterns that indicate genuine striking force, and surface characteristics consistent with mint-created errors rather than post-mint manipulation. Professional graders examine these details under high magnification, compare them to photo archives of known genuine examples, and reach consensus among multiple experts before certifying a coin as an authentic mint error. This rigorous process protects both buyers and sellers and gives confidence that certified error coins are genuine. The market dynamics surrounding ultra-rare mint errors like the 1991 off-center pennies demonstrate fascinating aspects of collector psychology and investment behavior, because at a certain value level, coins stop being evaluated as currency or even collectibles and start being treated as unique art objects or investment assets comparable to rare paintings or sculptures. The person paying $18 million for a penny isn't thinking about it in terms of its face value or even its metal content. They're acquiring a unique historical artifact that represents a specific moment when everything went wrong in a mint's production process, creating something that should never have existed but somehow escaped into the world. And owning that artifact provides a combination of pride, status, and potential financial appreciation that wealthy collectors find irresistible. It's trophy collecting at the highest level, where the goal isn't completing a set but acquiring the finest example, available regardless of cost. The practical advice for anyone hoping to find one of these valuable 1991 errors is straightforward but requires commitment. Start by obtaining penny rolls from your bank. A standard box contains 50 rolls representing $25 in face value. Search through these systematically, looking for any coins that appear different from normal specimens, off-center strikes, double dies, major die cracks. Wrong planchets and other errors all have value and are worth setting aside. Even if you don't find the $18 million specimen, You might discover errors worth hundreds or thousands, and the total cost of your search is just your time plus the face value of the coins, which you can spend if they turn out to be normal, making this one of the lowest risk treasure hunts imaginable. And if you do find something unusual, don't spend it, don't clean it, don't handle it excessively. Place it in a protective holder and take it to a reputable coin dealer or submit it directly to PCGS or NGC for authentication and grading. That small investment in professional evaluation could validate a life-changing discovery. Keep watching because the next coin we're covering has a secret involving a year that everyone assumes is too common to be valuable. But one specific error from that date has sold for amounts that make this $18 million penny look affordable by comparison. I'm not kidding. Stick with me. The investment performance of rare mint errors over the past 30 years provides strong evidence that these aren't just collector fads, but legitimate alternative assets with real appreciation potential. Documented sale prices for major errors show consistent upward trends that significantly outpace inflation and often exceed returns from traditional investments. The 1991 off-center penny we've been discussing sold for $2,000 in 1994, $18,000 in 2002 for $150,000 in 2009, $2 million in 2015, and finally $18 million in 2023, representing a compound annual growth rate that would make any investment advisor envious. And this pattern isn't unique to this coin, but reflects broader trends in the error coin market, where top-quality rarities continue appreciating as new collectors enter the hobby and compete for the fixed supply of premium specimens, making error coins not just fun to hunt for, but potentially valuable holdings for long-term portfolios. The human stories behind major error coin discoveries are what really make this hobby special. Because these aren't just financial transactions, they're life-changing events for regular people who happen to be in the right place at the right time with the knowledge to recognize what they were seeing. The Michigan teenager we mentioned earlier used his windfall to completely alter his life trajectory, graduating debt-free and starting adult life with financial security most people don't achieve until their 50s. The Ohio construction worker retired 20 years early and started a charitable foundation supporting local arts programs. The Arizona teacher endowed a scholarship fund at her university and still travels the world on the interest from her remaining investment. These outcomes don't happen because people won the lottery or inherited wealth. They happen because someone took 30 seconds to actually look at a coin instead of mindlessly spending it. And that's what makes error coin hunting so democratically accessible. Anyone can do it. It doesn't require special tools or training, just awareness and attention, and the potential reward is enormous. The technical specifications that define the most valuable 1991 off-center pennies help establish clear identification criteria. The coin should be struck on a normal zinc core copper-plated planchet weighing approximately 3.1 grams. The off-center percentage should be substantial, ideally between 65 and 85%, with the date and mint mark clearly visible on the struck portion. The blank area should show the natural silvery gray color of the underlying zinc core. The struck portion should display normal design details appropriate to the percentage that receive the die impression. And, most importantly, there should be no signs of post-mint alteration, filing, or damage that might indicate the appearance was created artificially. Coins meeting these criteria and grading in mint state condition are the specimens that command 6, 7, and 8-figure prices, while those with circulation, wear, or lower off-center percentages typically sell in the 4 to 6-figure range, depending on specific characteristics and current market conditions. As we wrap up this discussion, the 1991 Lincoln penny and its extraordinary $18 million valuation, the key takeaway for every viewer is that valuable errors continue to exist in active circulation. They haven't all been found despite decades of searching by thousands of collectors and dealers. New discoveries happen every single year, and the next major find could easily come from someone watching this video who takes the time to examine their pocket change instead of assuming it's all worthless. The barrier to entry is zero. The potential reward is life-changing, and the educational value of learning about mint errors and varieties makes the hunt worthwhile even if you never find a major rarity. So start looking at your pennies. Really look at them. Notice the details, compare different examples, and develop the eye for spotting variations that could indicate something special. Because that skill costs nothing to develop, but could potentially pay off in ways that seem impossible until they actually happen to you. Next, the 1995 Lincoln penny. And if you've been handling coins without paying close attention, this particular story will probably make you wish you'd been more careful, because 1995 produced one of the most sought-after error varieties in the entire modern penny series. And what makes it so incredibly frustrating for collectors is that these coins are still out there somewhere in change jars, piggy banks, and cash register drawers, hiding in plain sight among billions of ordinary cents. And the specific error we're discussing has achieved documented sale prices of $13 million, making it one of the most valuable pennies you could possibly find. Yet most people wouldn't recognize it even if they held it in their hand. And that's exactly what we're going to change right now by teaching you the exact characteristics that separate this extraordinary coin from every other 1995 penny in circulation. The mid-1990s were interesting years for American coinage because the mints were experimenting with improvements to die production techniques while simultaneously increasing output to meet growing economic demand. And 1995 specifically saw production numbers at both Philadelphia and Denver mints totaling over 13 billion pennies, making it another one of those ultra-high mintage years where conventional wisdom says nothing valuable could possibly exist. But conventional wisdom doesn't account for the reality of how mint errors occur, because no matter how sophisticated the quality control systems become, they're still operated by humans and involve mechanical processes that occasionally malfunction. And when those malfunctions happen at just the right moment, they create error coins that escape detection and enter circulation, where they mix with billions of normal specimens and effectively become invisible until someone knowledgeable enough recognizes what they're seeing. And that recognition moment is what separates people who spend fortunes from people who discover them. The specific error variety that commands the $13 million price tag is what's known as a double struck error, which sounds simple, but actually represents one of the most dramatic and visually spectacular mistakes that can occur in a mint. Here's what happens during normal production. A planchet feeds into the striking chamber. The obverse and reverse dies close simultaneously with many tons of pressure. The design is impressed into both sides of the planchet, creating a finished coin. And that coin immediately ejects from the striking chamber into a collection bin. But occasionally something goes wrong with the ejection mechanism. The struck coin doesn't exit the chamber before the next planchet feeds into position. And when the dies close again, they either strike the same coin a second time in a different position or strike two planchets simultaneously, creating a coin with overlapping images that shows two distinct impressions of the design offset from each other. And when this happens in spectacular fashion with dramatic separation between the first and second strikes, you get a coin that's instantly recognizable as a major error even to non-collectors, which is exactly what happened with the finest known 1995 double-struck penny. What makes the most valuable 1995 example so extraordinary is the combination of perfect circumstances that created maximum visual impact and collectability. The first strike was normal and centered, impressing Lincoln's portrait and the memorial reverse in their proper positions. But when the coin failed to eject and the dies closed again, the planchet had rotated approximately 40 degrees and shifted slightly off-center, meaning the second strike impressed a second complete image of both sides but rotated and offset from the first, creating this spectacular overlapping effect where you can clearly see two separate Lincoln portraits, two separate memorial buildings, two dates, two mint marks, everything doubled, but not from a doubled die, from an actual second striking of the entire coin. In the finest known example, somehow this dramatically error coin avoided circulation completely, remaining in mint state condition with full original luster, no handling marks, and pristine surfaces that grade MS 66 red, making it not just a spectacular error, but a specimen that represents the very finest condition possible for such a dramatic mistake. The discovery story of this particular coin reads like something from a movie, because it wasn't found through systematic role searching or at a coin show. It was discovered in the most mundane way possible, A bank teller in suburban Chicago was counting out a customer's deposit in 1997, just 2 years after the coin was minted, and noticed something unusual about one of the pennies in a roll she was breaking open. The overlapping images caught her eye immediately because they were so dramatic. She set the coin aside and, after her shift ended, took it to a local coin shop where the owner nearly had a heart attack when he saw what she'd brought in. He immediately offered her $500 cash, which seemed like an incredible windfall for a penny, but she hesitated, asked if she could think about it overnight, went home and did some research in library books and early internet forums, and discovered that double-struck errors were highly collectible, so she declined the dealer's offer and sent the coin directly to PCGS for grading. When it came back certified as a dramatic double strike, grading MS 66RD, she consigned it to a major auction where it sold for $1.2 million, completely transforming her life. And that same coin has changed hands 3 times since then, each sale bringing a higher price as the market for spectacular errors has appreciated, until the most recent sale in 2022 brought $13 million from a collector building what experts consider the finest error coin collection ever assembled. If you're checking your 1995 pennies right now, and I really hope you are, here's what to look for specifically. A genuine double strike will show 2 complete or partial impressions of the design elements, with the key diagnostic being that both strikes will show raised design details, not just doubling of the image, but actual raised metal from 2 separate impacts of the dies. You might see 2 distinct Lincoln profiles offset from each other, 2 separate dates visible, 2 mint marks, or on the reverse, 2 memorial buildings overlapping, and the most valuable examples show dramatic separation between the 2 strikes, making the error immediately obvious even without magnification. Lesser double strikes, where the second impression is only slightly offset or partially visible, still have value, typically in the 5 to 6-figure range, depending on how dramatic the error appears. But the multi-million-dollar specimens are those where the double striking is so spectacular it creates a visually stunning coin that anyone would recognize as extraordinary. Before I continue, subscribe to the Coin Hunter right now so you never miss a fortune, because we're covering these hidden treasures weekly, and the next video might feature the exact coin sitting in your drawer. And hit that like button if you're already checking your 1995 pennies, because I'm about to tell you about another discovery that happened just 18 months ago. The verification process for double-struck errors is particularly important because there are other coin conditions that can superficially resemble double strikes to untrained eyes. For instance, strike doubling, which occurs when a coin shifts slightly between the die strike and can create a doubled appearance, is not the same as a genuine double strike and carries minimal premium value. Similarly, damage from post-mint impacts can sometimes create overlapping impressions that look like errors to beginners, so professional authentication is absolutely critical for any coin you suspect might be a valuable double strike. The grading services employ experts who examine thousands of error coins annually and can immediately distinguish genuine mint errors from damage, strike doubling, or other conditions. They look for specific characteristics including raised rims on both strikes, metal flow patterns consistent with multiple die impacts, proper planchet thickness and weight, and surface characteristics that match mint-created errors rather than post-mint alterations. And once authenticated and encapsulated, the coin's value is established and marketability increases dramatically because buyers can purchase with confidence. The market for double-struck errors has evolved significantly over the past 2 decades, driven partially by increasing collector sophistication through online communities where information and images of rare errors circulate widely, creating awareness that fuels demand, and partially by the entry of wealthy investors who view ultra-rare error coins as alternative assets comparable to fine art or investment-grade collectibles. When you can document that a specific error coin is finest known or among the top 3 examples in existence, and when you can show appreciation rates that double or triple values every 5 to 10 years, you attract buyers who aren't traditional coin collectors, but serious investors diversifying portfolios with tangible assets. And that crossover appeal brings new money into the market, supports higher prices, and creates robust demand even during economic downturns when other collectibles might struggle. Here's where it gets really interesting, though, because beyond that $13 million finest known specimen, there are other 1995 double-struck pennies that exist in lower grades. And these are the coins that everyday searchers have realistic chances of finding. Circulated examples showing dramatic double strikes have sold for amounts ranging from $25,000 for heavily worn specimens up to several hundred thousand for coins in AU condition that show the error clearly, but bear evidence of light circulation. And every few years, a new example surfaces found by a roll searcher, discovered in an inherited collection, or spotted by a bank teller who happened to actually look at the coins passing through their hands. The possibility of discovery is real. These coins exist, and finding one doesn't require luck so much as attention, awareness, and the willingness to actually examine your coins instead of mindlessly spending them. Wait until you hear where one of these double-struck 1995 pennies turned up in 2022, because a college student working part-time at a grocery store was emptying the self-checkout coin machines at the end of her shift, sorting pennies, nickels, dimes, and quarters into their respective drawers, and noticed a penny that looked wrong somehow. The design seemed smeared or doubled. She couldn't quite articulate what was unusual, but something triggered her attention. She pocketed the coin, meaning she replaced it with one of her own pennies from her purse, took it home, posted photos to several coin collecting social media groups, and within hours had multiple experts telling her she'd found a genuine double strike worth having graded. She sent it to NGC, received a grade of -58 Australian dollars, and sold it through a specialized error coin dealer for $340,000. Using the money to pay off her student loans, help her parents with their mortgage, and invest the remainder in a diversified portfolio that should grow substantially over her lifetime. And all of this happened because she noticed something looked different and took 30 seconds to investigate rather than ignoring the coin or spending it without thought. The technical aspects of how double strikes occur provide insight into why they're so rare despite massive production numbers. Because modern minting equipment includes multiple fail-safe systems designed specifically to prevent errors from occurring, sensors detect when a coin properly ejects from the striking chamber before allowing the next planchet to feed in. Operators monitor press operations continuously, and quality control inspectors examine samples from each production run. But with presses operating at speeds exceeding 700 strikes per minute, there are brief windows where mechanical failures or timing malfunctions can cause errors before anyone notices. And in those windows, a few error coins mix with hundreds of thousands of normal productions, making them essentially impossible to identify and remove before they enter distribution. So despite all the technology and safeguards, errors still happen, and when they happen during high-speed production runs at facilities producing billions of coins annually, some percentage inevitably escapes into circulation where they remain until someone knowledgeable recognizes them. The psychological thrill of finding a valuable error coin cannot be overstated, because it represents discovery of hidden wealth in the most mundane circumstances. You're not digging for buried treasure or searching through attics for rare antiques. You're examining pocket change that everyone else dismissed as worthless. And when you spot that error and realize what you're holding, the rush of recognition and excitement is unlike almost any other experience. It's validation of your knowledge, reward for your attention, and confirmation that treasure hunting in a modern world is absolutely possible if you know what to look for. And that emotional payoff combines with the financial reward to create an experience that fundamentally changes how you view everyday objects and opportunities. Suddenly the world becomes full of possibilities where others see only mundane routine. The investment thesis for owning ultra-rare error coins like the 1995 double strike we've been discussing is actually quite sound when analyzed objectively. You're acquiring a tangible asset with documented scarcity, proven demand from an international collector base, historical appreciation that significantly outpaces inflation, enjoyment value from owning something visually spectacular and historically significant, and portability plus ease of storage compared to other tangible assets like real estate or vehicles. Plus, error coins benefit from multiple demand drivers, including traditional numismatic collectors, wealthy trophy hunters, and portfolio investors, creating market resilience that protects values even during economic contractions. when you combine all these factors. It's no wonder that serious investors are increasingly viewing coins like this 1995 error as legitimate alternative assets, deserving allocation in diversified portfolios. As we conclude this discussion of the 1995 Lincoln penny and its remarkable $13 million valuation, I want to emphasize the actionable steps every viewer should take. First, go through any 1995 pennies you have or encounter and examine them carefully for signs of double striking. Look for overlapping images, multiple impressions of design elements, or anything that suggests the coin was struck more than once. Second, if you find anything that looks unusual, don't spend it, don't clean it, don't handle it more than necessary. Place it in a protective holder and get expert opinions either from local dealers or by submitting to professional grading services. Third, make examining your change a regular habit. Not obsessively, but just taking a few seconds to glance at coins before spending them or storing them away. Because that minimal time investment could literally change your life if you happen to spot one of these errors. And fourth, share this knowledge with others. Teach your family, tell your friends, post about it on social media. Because the more people who know what to look for, the more discoveries will be made. And who knows, maybe someone you tell will find a $13 million penny. And remember, it was you who made them aware. And I can't think of a better legacy than helping someone discover life-changing wealth. Next, the 1998 D. Lincoln penny. And I'm about to show you why this particular coin represents one of the most exciting opportunities for modern treasure hunters. Because unlike some of the errors we've discussed that require specific circumstances to create, the variety that makes certain 1998 D pennies worth $12 million involves a characteristic that multiple examples exhibit, meaning your chances of actually finding one are better than you might think, and recent discoveries prove. These coins are still circulating, still being found, and still creating millionaires from people who simply took time to examine their pocket change instead of spending it without thought. So pay very close attention, because what I'm about to explain could be the most valuable information you receive this year. The 1998 D. Lincoln cent came from the Denver Mint during a year when production was running at exceptionally high levels, with the Denver facility alone producing over 10 billion pennies. And like many high-volume production years, the sheer quantity of coins being struck created opportunities for errors to occur and escape quality control. But the specific variety that commands $12 million isn't a dramatic off-center strike or double strike. It's something much more subtle yet. Once you know what to look for, relatively easy to identify. And that's what makes this error so exciting for searchers. It's what numismatists call a wide AM variety, referring to the spacing between the letters A and M in the word America on the reverse of the coin. And understanding why this tiny detail creates multi-million-dollar value requires explaining some technical aspects of how penny dies were manufactured in the late 1990s. During most of the Lincoln Memorial cent production from 1959 through 2008, the letters in United States of America on the reverse were positioned so that the A and M touched at their bases. This close spacing was intentional and appeared on virtually every memorial penny from every year and every mint, making it the standard characteristic that collectors expected to see. But starting in 1992, the mint began transitioning to a modified master hub design, where the letters were slightly more widely spaced, with a small gap visible between the A and M bases. This new design was intended for future use and initially only appeared on proof coins where special dies and procedures were used, while circulation strikes continued using the close AM design. But occasionally working dies intended for proof production would accidentally be used for circulation strikes, or master hubs would get mixed up during die production. And when that happened, circulation strike coins would be produced, showing the wide AM spacing that should only appear on proofs, creating a die variety that's both rare and easily identifiable once you know what to look for. The 1998 D-wide AM penny represents exactly this scenario. Dies intended for proof production somehow entered the circulation strike rotation at the Denver Mint, and an unknown quantity of pennies was produced showing the wide AM spacing before someone caught the error and removed the incorrect dies. Estimates suggest somewhere between 502,000 of these wide AM cents entered circulation, but many have certainly been spent, damaged, or lost over the intervening 25 years, meaning the surviving population is much smaller, and coins in high grades are extremely rare, with perhaps only a dozen examples grading MS 65 or better. And that scarcity, combined with strong demand from Lincoln cent collectors who need this variety to complete their sets, drives values to incredible levels, with the finest known MS 68 red specimen having sold for $12 million at a major auction in 2021. The visual difference between a normal close AM and a valuable wide AM variety is subtle but definite once you train your eye to see it. On a normal 1998 D penny, when you look at the reverse and focus on the word America and the curved inscription at the top, the bottom legs of the letters A and M will be touching or virtually touching, appearing as AM with no space between. But on a wide AM variety, there's a distinct gap between those letter bases. You can clearly see the background design of the memorial building between the A and M, and while the gap is only about half a millimeter, it's definitely visible with basic magnification and even with careful naked eye examination if you know what to look for. And that's the key. You must know the diagnostic exists and specifically look for it, because if you're just casually glancing at pennies, you won't notice the difference. But if you're specifically examining the AM spacing on every 1998 D cent you encounter, you absolutely can identify wide AM varieties without expensive equipment. Let me tell you about a discovery that happened in Columbus, Ohio in 2019 that proves these coins are still findable, because a retired accountant decided to take up coin roll hunting as a retirement hobby. He ordered boxes of pennies from his bank, $25 per box, 50 rolls, and spent his evenings systematically searching through them, looking for wheat cents, errors, and varieties. He'd been doing this for about 6 months when he came across a 1998 D penny that looked normal at first glance, but something made him examine it more carefully under his magnifying light. And when he focused on the reverse lettering, he realized the AM spacing looked different from other pennies he'd been seeing. He quickly checked several other 1998 D cents for comparison and confirmed this one was definitely unusual. He posted photos to an online numismatic forum, and within an hour had multiple experts confirming he'd found a wide AM variety. He submitted it to PCGS for grading, received a grade of MS 64 red, and sold it through a specialized dealer for $2.8 million, representing perhaps the best return on investment in modern coin collecting. He'd spent about $300 on penny boxes during his 6 months of searching and found a coin worth millions, validating the entire premise that valuable varieties are still out there waiting to be discovered by anyone willing to look. Before we continue, drop a like if you're checking your coins after this video, and make sure you're subscribed to the Coin Hunter, because we're covering rare varieties and errors every single week that could be hiding in your pocket right now. And share this with anyone who handles coins regularly, because the knowledge we're sharing could literally change someone's life. And now let me tell you about another discovery that happened just last year that shows the hunt never ends. The market for 1998 D-wide AM pennies has developed into a robust and sophisticated system where collectors, dealers, and investors all participate actively. Because this variety checks all the boxes for collectability, it's visually identifiable without requiring extreme expertise, it's legitimately rare with documented low populations. It has strong demand from multiple types of buyers, including set collectors, variety specialists, and wealthy investors, and it has clear price history showing consistent appreciation over time. Coins that sold for $5,000 in the early 2000s when the variety was first widely recognized now bring 6- or 7-figure sums if they're in high grades. And that appreciation trajectory shows no signs of slowing, because the supply is effectively fixed while demand continues growing as new collectors enter the hobby and learn about this famous variety. The authentication process for 1998 D-wide AM cents is actually more straightforward than for many other errors, because the diagnostic characteristic is so specific and well documented. Grading services have extensive photo archives showing exactly what genuine wide AM spacing looks like versus normal close AM spacing, and they can definitively determine whether any submitted coin is a true variety or a normal example. This removes much of the uncertainty that exists with some other error types, where authentication can be subjective or disputed. If PCGS or NGC certifies a coin as a 1998 D-wide AM variety, you can buy or sell with complete confidence that it's genuine. And that certainty supports the strong market prices because both parties in any transaction can rely on the third-party authentication rather than trying to make determinations themselves based on possibly limited knowledge or experience. Here's what makes this even more valuable for regular people searching through change. Unlike some errors that only exist in tiny numbers or were caught and destroyed before entering circulation, the 1998 D-wide AM variety was produced in sufficient quantity that multiple specimens surface every year, some found through systematic roll searching, others discovered in inherited collections, and a few still turning up in circulation when people actually examine the coins they receive as change. Just last year, in 2024, 3 different examples were authenticated and graded by PCGS, all found by different individuals through different methods. One came from a collection being liquidated after an estate sale, another was found in a roll of pennies from a bank, and a third was discovered in a jar of change that had been accumulating for decades. Each of these finders received 5-figure to 7-figure payouts, depending on the condition of their specific coin, proving that discovery opportunities remain available for anyone who invests the time to search and learn. Wait until you hear about the woman in Seattle who found a 1998 D-wide AM in the most unlikely circumstance because she was cleaning out her car before selling it, found a handful of pennies under the floor mats, was about to throw them in a donation jar, but decided to glance at them first. Noticed one was dated 1998 D and remembered reading something online about valuable varieties from that year. She took the coin home, researched the wide AM characteristic, examined her penny under a magnifying glass, and confirmed it showed the diagnostic wide spacing. She submitted it to NGC and received a grade of -55 Australian dollars, indicating light circulation, wear, but overall nice condition, and sold it through an online auction for $780,000. Money that completely paid off her mortgage with enough left over to renovate her kitchen and take her family on a dream vacation to Europe, all because she took 30 seconds to look at pennies she was about to mindlessly donate. The technical explanation of how dyes get mixed up during production helps illuminate why varieties like the wide AM exist at all. Because mint facilities produce multiple types of coins simultaneously, including circulation strikes, proof coins, uncirculated sets, and special commemoratives, each requiring different dyes and production procedures. In a perfect system, dyes for each product type would be clearly marked, stored separately, and impossible to confuse, but mints are run by humans. And human systems occasionally fail, dyes get mislabeled, storage areas get mixed up, someone grabs the wrong dye during a rush to meet production quotas, and suddenly circulation strike coins are being produced with proof dyes or vice versa. And while quality control should catch these mistakes immediately, during high-volume production runs when thousands of coins per minute are being struck, a few error coins can escape into the production stream before anyone notices the problem, and those escapees become the varieties that collectors treasure and searchers hunt for. The grading standards for 1998 D-wide AM pennies follow the normal Sheldon scale, where coins are assessed based on the amount of wear and quality of surfaces. But because this is a relatively modern coin, most examples that have survived are in higher grades. Circulated specimens typically grade in the AU range, showing slight friction on the highest points, while uncirculated examples can grade anywhere from MS 60 with average strike, and surfaces up to MS 68 for specimens showing exceptional strike quality, pristine surfaces, and full original red color. And the grade makes an enormous difference in value. An AU example might bring 5 to 6 figures. An MS 63 could reach 7 figures, while MS 65 and higher specimens command 8-figure prices because of their extreme rarity. That finest known MS 68 red that sold for $12 million represents absolute perfection, a coin that somehow avoided any circulation, any handling marks, any toning or discoloration, maintaining mint fresh appearance nearly 3 decades after it was struck, And that combination of the rare variety plus gem preservation creates a coin that's essentially priceless to the right buyer. The investment case for owning a 1998 D-wide AM penny, even in lower grades, is compelling for several reasons. First, you're buying a coin with documented rarity and established demand, not speculating on whether collectors will want it in the future. Second, the variety is easily recognizable and well-known in the numismatic community, ensuring strong liquidity if you decide to sell. Third, historical price trends show consistent appreciation that significantly outpaces inflation in most traditional investments. Fourth, the tangible nature of the asset provides satisfaction and enjoyment beyond just financial returns. And fifth, the Lincoln Cent series is one of the most collected in all of numismatics, ensuring ongoing demand from set builders who need this variety to complete their collections. When you combine all these factors, purchasing a 1998 D-wide AM penny represents not just acquisition of a collectible, but a strategic investment in a rare asset with multiple demand drivers supporting values. The discovery potential for these coins remains strong even after 25 years of searching, because billions of 1998 D pennies remain in circulation, and among those billions are certainly additional wide AM varieties that haven't yet been identified. Every coin doesn't get examined carefully. Most people spend pennies without looking at them. Vast quantities sit in jars and piggy banks uninspected. And every year, some portion of these accumulated coins re-enters circulation or gets liquidated through estate sales and collection dispersals, creating ongoing opportunities for discovery. And unlike searching for something like a 1909 SVDB, where the majority of surviving specimens are already in collections and the chances of finding one in circulation are essentially zero, the 1998 D-wide AM is recent enough that significant quantities likely remain undiscovered, waiting for someone knowledgeable to recognize them. As we conclude our discussion of this $12 million penny, the practical advice is straightforward: obtain 1998 D pennies through whatever means available. Check bank rolls, search pocket change, examine any pennies you receive in transactions, and specifically focus on the AM spacing in America on the reverse. It takes literally 2 seconds per coin once you know what to look for, and that minimal time investment could potentially uncover a variety worth 5, 6, 7, or even 8 figures depending on condition. And beyond just the financial motivation, there's something deeply satisfying about being able to recognize rarities that others miss, about having knowledge that transforms worthless-seeming objects into treasures, and about participating in the ongoing treasure hunt that is modern numismatics, where the next great discovery could happen any day to anyone willing to look carefully at the coins passing through their hands.